Welcome to Dweller of the Dark. We are a channel honoring the yellowed and blackened bones of many prominent authors. We will be digging up several obscure, strange, and forgotten authors who influenced many of the great horror, science fiction, and fantasy writers today. More tales of the horrifying, obscure, strange, and forgotten are climbing out of the tombs. Subscribe, comment, like, donate, or I'll send Thaddeus Forge to steal your heathen soul. Unknown horror masters, send us ghoulish delights for the Skull and Bones collection. Your pound of writer's flesh will continue to feed our ghouls for now. Books, websites, podcasts, in the links below. Children of Horror, Legion of Ghouls. Tonight, The Devil of Black Bayou, Chapter 3. I hear the rustle of leathery wings. It is followed by the titter of squealing bats flying all around and above me. I could be wrong though. Sound is kind of funny when it comes through brick and earth. It might be the shuffle of a nest of rats squeaking as they pad within the walls. Even after more than a century, it can be hard to tell in the darkness of a crypt. But I do know one thing. Something out of the ordinary disturbed them. I just heard the rumble of something. I catch a faint scent of gasoline on the air. Both are coming from an engine, a boat engine to be precise. Now I'm hearing weird music and laughter from a small group toward the northwest. I'd better follow up on this peculiarity. Shrugging, I move phantom-like from the smothering, claustrophobic tomb and out into the molded chambers of antiquity. The dampness of fog cloaks me as I walk up a winding cyclopean set of stairs to the back of my humble castle. Walking out toward the front of the castle, I'm a little displeased. Someone has cut through the tall grasses and blazed a trail right up to us. I look out and study where the trail originated. What are these strange boxes across the shore from Avalon? Who are the fools that came out here to bother me? If these people only knew how dangerous the waters around here are. This isn't good for either of us. It's inevitable what must be done sooner rather than later. I'll have to deal with them if the slithering, crawling, or hovering pets don't first. I see shimmering white niter crusted between the bricks as I make an ascent above ground from my crypt. It's a somber crawl upwards toward the familiar grave of my Marie. Solemnly as I make the walk, I feel the ooze of greenish slime on my feet. My hands shake off some type of oozing black ichor whilst I continue my climb up the stone steps to the cemetery. Once above the blackened earth, I make haste to Marie's tomb. The moon has slightly illuminated her life-size marble statue that rests over her grave. It sits nestled under several aged rose bushes of the deepest blood red. I sit beside her immortally cast figure on a cold stone bench. I lower my head and feel nothing beneath these towering, fragrant roses. I am as still and lifeless as stone amongst the ruins of my battlement. I raise my head slightly to look on Marie's effigy. I recall as I stare on, I had been seated on this very cherub-adorned bench with Marie many a night. It was long, long ago before there was a grave or even the thought of one. How I miss those wonderful, heartfelt moments walking the grounds of our paradise. This night, with its encroaching mist and solitude, so remind me of my walks with Marie. I let my memories drift back toward our cherished conversations of the future. I see her even now huddled next to me on this granite bench, between the cypress, fog, and moss. We gathered close for warmth and protection. I'd feel her shudder from the night's chill, and maybe something more. Maybe I was feeling her tremble in fear of the abysmal darkness. Not that she'd ever admit it. Lord, how she hated the chilling, killing dampness of the swamps, the ocean, and especially the night. She loathed the shadows of gray moss, the whispers between the tangled vines, and the black ichor that oozed with the greenish lichens that always pervade everything when they spiral toward inevitable decay. But of all our conversations, I found Marie detested death most of all. Her greatest fear, she expressed most often, especially when we set sail together, was, "I never want to die at sea, my beloved. The thought of my body being wrapped in canvas and ropes, then tossed to the ocean, has given me more than one nightmare, Anton. I know I'd be no more, lifeless and cold, but still, it's the thought that pervades. It's the image that I conjure when the fear of the event is so palpable and insidious. And I must confess to you, whether you chide me as being completely mad or not, that I often imagine lately the most disturbing things. It's a nightmarish image, Anton, that awakens me with the coldest of chills. I don't know why I'm having this recurring nightmare, my love, when such a thing should never occur. But at any rate, I have this persistent dream that the lurking, hideous things in the ocean depths are attacking me. More than that, I see a cloud of flesh, my flesh, and blood while I am ripped apart. My lifeless corpse is torn to shreds until all of me feeds the creatures of the sea. And the worst part of this nightmare, Anton. What could be more dreadful than that, Marie? I interrupted with my eyes and mouth wide open. I was having a deja vu moment of my mother's madness as she described such terrible things. I prayed in the moment my wife was not going mad, for I truly did not like our current morose subject one bit. I feel every fang in every ravenous mouth as they do so. I smell their horrible sulfurous stench and feel the oozing things gliding all around and inside me. I see these reddish, purple, and yellow hideous eels darting in and around my gnawed apart body. Marie wiped back a tear and wrung her hands before finishing. Then, when I can take no more, I see a shapeless, shadowy thing hissing and laughing when no part of my flesh remains. After Marie's lurid description of her nightmare, and to my bewildered disbelief, Marie would throw herself into my arms for comfort as she cried about the dreadful dream. She'd hold me tight, point to the Gulf of Mexico's horizon, and make me promise. I pray to God I never die out there. But should I, my beloved, never toss my body into those waves? You have my word, Marie. I'd make no jest of her unfounded fears. I definitely said not another word about it. My silence was more out of self-preservation. Once I got over the proverbial shock of such an irrational fear, I might make light of it to ease both our worries, but such matters with a hot-tempered wife had their own inherent dangers. Bringing any type of levity was a perilous venture, to say the least. I might have a slip of the tongue jokingly, or even worse, laugh at such foolish and preposterous thinking and cross into a furious storm with Marie. Naturally, on the latter misstep, there was an undeniable certainty Marie would run me through with my cutlass for the perceived slight of dismissing her fears. My Marie My heaven-sent angel, my beloved, always carried her flame temper just at the surface. And when that fire was doused, all manner of hell would be raised to consume everything and everyone in its path. And with such a blistering fury, my gentle lamb of a wife turned into a vicious, cunning wolf, a raging beast that most assuredly would burn me and anyone who crossed her to ash with that infernal blaze. But the fears, like a bad dream or a hellish storm, always dissipate and blow over with time. Yes, time washes away the unbearable pain, the unfounded fear, and the unimaginable loss with that most precious of our healing commodities, the ability to forget. So long after the nightmares had been forgotten, Marie and I refocused our conversations to less morbid pursuits. We settled back into our routine of talking of our days, our nights, and most importantly, our future. The cold nights came, and we huddled. The warm nights arrived, and we stirred closely together, swatting mosquitoes. Marie and I gladly sat back home in the quiet of our castle abode, Avalon, nestled in the sanctuary of swamp. But after a few years, another troubling question would arise. Marie, spurred on by possibly the reoccurrence of the sea nightmares, would often ask, "Why does everything have to die, Anton?" She would look on me with a desperate, narrowed-eyed stare, registering carefully my response, then point with tear-filled eyes to a dead raven, a floating fish, or some other creature whose time on earth had ended. I'd take her face into my hands under a silver moon or brilliant set of stars. I'd caress her cheeks gently and lock my own ocean blue eyes on her doe-like eyes. With my gaze set on that innocent face, I'd explain my views on death as best I could using the words of John Keats. Can death be sleep when life is but a dream, and scenes of bliss pass as a phantom by? The transient pleasures as a vision seem, and yet we think the greatest pains to die. That's so eloquent, Anton. But what do those words truly mean? Everything I've seen die did not look as if it were sleeping or in a dream. Marie pulled back and looked out toward the gasping raven littered with ants under torchlight. I winced as if in pain myself, witnessing the poor raven's horrid demise. The hideous insects were already locking their mandibles into its flesh, trying to consume the dying, flapping creature. She looked over to me, puzzled. Furrowing her smooth brow, Marie asked another poignant question as we watched the ants continue their assault in disgust. "Who do you quote this time?" I quote the late John Keats. From what I read, he had an incredible insight into what it means to be alive. He died before his time, you see. Like that raven you are transfixed with, he died painfully and too young as well of the wasting disease. That's sad to hear anyone dying like that. Marie put a hand to her mouth and lowered her head, slightly saddened. To lighten her mood and get us off such a morose and depressing subject, I chanced fate and my beloved wife's notorious temper. I lowered my head slightly, narrowed my eyes mischievously, adding with a sly grin, "Some think a jealous vampire might have killed him, a creature envious of his poetic gifts." "Rubbish! Husband, you are such a liar!" I had kicked up my wife's fiery Cajun temper and changed course accordingly. She hated it when I tried to scare or embellish her with one of my tales. Lying was an absolute egregious sin in her mind, even if it was a little embellishment, unnecessary fiction, or obvious tall tale to make the life of a sad dead poet more interesting.
I should run you through for scaring me with such horrid tales.
She stood and stormed off in a hurricane rage, turning once to roar back in utter protest.
Vampires do not exist, Antoine Valtaire.
Vampires do not exist, Antoine Valtaire. I laughed heartily as blood tears fell from my glowing eyes in the fog-filled darkness. I spoke in a rasping, leathered voice to a ghost from my past.
Oh, my dear wife, on whatever lonely shore in eternity you now reside, if that were only so.
I stared out with luminescent blue eyes to the blissful peace of dripping water and the serenity of a ghost-filled night. My memories, my phantoms, my ghost continued to scream out like banshees once again from my past. Is there anything more haunting than a derelict? Could anything bring the chills as fervently as the cruelest pirate ship sinking in a remote cypress swamp? I could wager, as I look on the wreck and walk out of my castle of crumbling red brick and rotted blood, there is not. Strolling past charred, yellowed bones amongst its wreckage, I sigh remembering. I look on the collapsing timbers encrusted with all manner of skull-colored barnacles. I shake my head in disgust on my worm-riddled captain's wheel. I push onward and fly upward amongst the timbers. I take a survey on the damage from decay, play games in my mind on how long repairs might take to fix the Blood Witch, and laugh at my stupidity for taking on such a refurbishment with a boat better suited as a reef. But there are certain carrying comforts in my recollections. I smile a wicked fanged grin of deep pride looking to the starboard deck. I remember the blood splatter of Lucian Parsons as my mouth waters incessantly. My stomach churns with hunger, bloodthirst, recollecting each mutinous murdered soul across the 7 seas. From the upper decks I grin wider, spying skeletons draped in carpets of ghostly moss and silken spider's web. How the shimmering threads glisten as pearls in the moonlight. What wondrous creatures my weavers are. I realize in the proud-filled moment that the weavers have grown hungry and restless. I can tell by all the commotion in the hold. I hear the screams of more rats or something larger and more to their taste. By that second scream, I'm thinking it's a someone. The largest of them is lumbering and scurrying in the below decks. I better grab them a few treats tonight, or the new town north of us may disappear, like the last one. Yes, I'll need to hunt up some game soon, but certainly there's time to enjoy the majesty and grandeur of my deadly kingdom. Finally, after casting my predatory eyes to the fog-filled black bayou, I take a moment to grimace and spy upward toward the celestial shimmer of the star-gemmed night. In my discerning gaze, I watch the sway of entwined wild vines and the 3 cracked masts of the Blood Witch. I note the rope-like twist of the monstrous vines as they are slowly pulling those oaken sea pillars, like everything else, into the recesses of the swamp. I hear the howling winds in those same vines, reminded of the Blood Witch's ropes and sail. My ears catch the swaying and creaking of the ancient cypress surrounding this island I call home. Their wooden sounds remind me of the Blood Witch's timbers and planks heaving as they battled the evil storm, which almost drowned us all. I am once more cast adrift towards the past and that ill-fated night on those stormy seas of the Devil's Canyon so long ago. Thank you for listening.
Have a great night.